what happens when Susie is pissed about her period.
Wait, you shouldn't. We're live. Hold on. We're not live on. Oh my god.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch what I was saying when this started.
Oh my god, guys! The conversation that we have before we go live is insane. Hi, we be live. We be live. We be live. Hi, everyone. I like stop saying that we're going live. Like this, Guys, please make sure you like the stream. We are live. We're gonna be covering some interesting, crazy stories. Let me see if you have.
Seriously.
So yeah, so what story? I see people in the live chat. I see Angel. I see D. I see Bro. I see Kurt. I see Atheist Damien. And we have some super chats that we will get to.
Already.
Thank you so much. But before we read the super chats, Susie, can you tell us what kind of stories we're covering today? Some of them are insane.
Oh yeah, for those who don't know what this show is, this is the show where me and Armin talk about a lot of different news stories that happened over the past week regarding usually atheism or secular religion related news items, basically. But we're not journalists. We're not here to report on the news. We're here to give you our reactions, our analysis of the news, okay? And mostly it's an excuse for me to hang out with my best friend and just talk about some nonsense in this world, really.
Thank you for saying they're here. People are liking the stream. Yeah, guys, give us your comments. Make sure you mention that you have liked the stream so other people see as well. But so today we're covering the countries Canada, Islam in Canada. Then what else? We're doing Australia. That's also Islam in Australia. Iran, Somalia. All of them are Islam related. Seems like. Oh wait. Open the.
Dolly is saying, "Will you cover the Olympic scandal? Which one?"
That doesn't narrow it at
all. Which one, my friend?
That's fine. Oh wait, there's two. Okay, so the link for the number 4 story is wrong. So if you could fix that on the Google Doc.
Oh, whoops, that's my bad.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
All right. Anyways, we have some super chats. Well, we have Erkin celebrating his 6 months membership, saying hello from Izmirnistan. Izmirnistan. Okay, I don't know how to read that. Oh, and then we have a giant super chat from Angel. I think Angel would prefer you reading that because you do so good when you read.
Oh, okay. Angel, thank you for once again $100 super chat, making sure that this work can continue. Saying good morning, everyone. I hope we are enjoying it so far. Don't forget to like the stream and comment after. Using a $100 super chat to once again just tell people to support our work. I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you, Angel. These streams are worth doing mainly because Angel is funding them. Thank you.
Angel. I just fixed the link, by the way.
Yeah, I opened it. I saw you.
Okay, beautiful.
But I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I have no idea what this first story is about. Given that it's about Canada, I should know what it's about. But I have been so focused on the news in Iran, the elections, the potential war between Iran and Israel, the riots in the UK. I have no idea.
Is there anything even else happening in the world?
Yes, so I have no idea about, but I'm gonna. Is it clappable?
This first one? Well, we can clap because the RCMP, the Royal Mounted Canadian Police, stopped a mass casualty event of Islamic radicals. So I will clap for that any day of the week.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, should we get started?
Yeah, and let me tell you guys before we even get started. Let me say something before we get started. This story is so much crazier than you think. You know, basically we're like, oh, another ISIS attack. Okay, whatever. That's normal now. It's normalized. An Islamic terrorist attack, that's normal, which is crazy. And I'm going to rant about that later. But this story is so much crazier than it first appears. So I'm going to dig into the details and let's clap for the RCMP.
All right. First news. The foiled ISIS terrorist plot that is shaking Canada. This is so crazy. Okay. In a dramatic turn of events, Canadian authorities thwarted a chilling ISIS-inspired terrorist plot poised to strike Toronto, arresting 62-year-old Ahmed Al-Didi and his 26-year-old son, Mustafa, in a Richmond Hill hotel on July 28, 2024. The details of this case are now just starting to come forth now. After a high-speed, multi-agency investigation, the duo was caught in what the police describe as the advanced stages of planning a devastating attack on Canada's largest city. The plot's sinister nature was revealed through a shocking video where the Al-Didis wielding an axe and a machete in front of an ISIS flag detailed their violent intentions. The elder Al-Didi, already notorious for a 2015 ISIS video showing him dismembering a prisoner, now faces aggravated assault charges alongside terrorism and conspiracy to commit murder. RCMP Assistant Commissioner Matt Peggs emphasized the gravity of the situation, stating, "This was an imminent threat, and we were able to prevent serious injuries or loss of life." Despite their denials in court, including Mustafa proclaiming through a translator, "I did not do anything," the father-son pair remained behind bars under strict non-communication orders, awaiting a fate that could reshape their lives forever. Okay. Whew, my friends. We need to get into the insane details of this terrorist plot that was stopped in Canada. So, according to interviews I saw with the police, okay, so they were arrested on July 28th. The police were not aware of this plot. The police did not have these two men on their radar until July, according to a statement I saw from the police. A reporter directly asked one of the representatives, "Were you aware of this preceding this attack?" And he basically said, "We were not aware of it until July." This is where this shit is so crazy. So we do not know. We do not know the nature of the attack. We don't know what they were planning. We don't know how far they were. We don't know what they were going to do. That hasn't been released yet. We know that they were in the advanced stages and that they were caught with an axe and a machete, and they had filmed a video in front of an ISIS flag pledging their allegiance to ISIS and citing that as, like, you know, the classic video that you film before you conduct a terrorist attack, you know, that kind of thing. So they know that. You know, honestly, that's par for the course. That's a par for the course, of course, obviously. Blah, blah, blah. But this is where things get crazy. So the father, Ahmed Al-Didi, has 6 charges against him. One of the charges that has just been levied against him, and guys, you know, innocent until proven guilty, this is all alleged. One of the charges is an aggravated assault charge for something he did in 2015. What did he do in 2015? Why is it being charged now? You may ask. Susie, what happened? According to Global News, a reporting agency in Canada, they have reported that they received anonymous sources, or they're anonymous to the public, right? They have sources that told them
that this aggravated assault charge originating from something that happened in 2015, and Global News reviewed this video, they said that matches the description of the charge, is a video of this man, Elder Aldidi, dismembering and chopping the hands and feet off of an ISIS prisoner who is crucified to a pole somewhere in the desert.
Where?
I don't know where. I don't know where. In a third country. But this is where things get crazy. This is where things get crazy. Because the police originally said that both of these men were Canadian citizens. It turns out that no, they are not both Canadian citizens. Only the father is a Canadian citizen. I don't know what their original country of origin is, but apparently they both need to speak through a translator. Because I guess their English is. And so now the government has their feet to the fire, and the conservative opposition party is calling out for a full review of the immigration security questions that were used to screen this guy. Because this guy, okay, the timeline is not exactly clear, let me be honest, in terms of reporting. But it seems to me that this man immigrated and became a Canadian citizen after he was filmed in an ISIS torture video. Based on the timeline as reported so far. And people are coming out and being like, what is going on with our immigration system? Trudeau, sir, can you answer for this? And so I watched an interview where some journalists were asking some people who are representing the Conservative Party, basically being like, well, is it fair to ask questions about this? Because there are other immigrants that come to Canada and commit crimes, blah, blah, blah. And the representative is like, it is completely appropriate to ask for answers when we are talking about a man who committed torture for ISIS, being allowed to attain citizenship within our country. Yes, that is an appropriate question because the rest of the Canadian public has a vested interest in understanding how the government allowed this to happen. And so that's where this story gets crazy for me. Is that was he in Canada and then left to go do this for ISIS and then return to Canada? Did he do that and then immigrate to Canada and then become a citizen and then remain in Canada for maybe as long as 10 years, 6 to 10 years before like activating and planning a mass casualty event on Canadian soil in our largest city? Like, there are massive questions that are being asked right now. And so that's why I framed this story as like, it's shaking Canada. Like, this is very, very shocking and very concerning. But Armin, as a Canadian citizen, how do you react to this?
Well, I mean, I don't know how these people like they can't even speak English. How did you get your citizenship if you can't even speak proper English? When I got my Canadian citizenship, I had to show that I could speak either French or English fluently. So how is the father who's a Canadian citizen? He needs a translator. How is he a Canadian citizen? I don't understand.
That also made no sense to me. Part of me is wondering if he's just speaking through a translator because he can. You know what I mean? Like to try to make things difficult, essentially.
Oh my god! And how did he get through this? Like, how do people with these views get through the system? I don't understand that.
So that is what everyone is asking.
Yeah, go on.
Well, the video that I was watching about the Conservatives calling out the rest of the government, basically being like, "What the hell is going on here? You need to answer for this." They were like, in a time when we have seen a huge rise in terrorist threat and particularly anti-Semitic hate crimes and anti-Semitic terrorist threat. Like, yes, 100% on behalf of the on behalf of the Canadian citizenry, we have major questions about how this was allowed to happen, and we're demanding like a full review because the Canadians deserve to have trust in their government.
I am going to show you how this is Islamic, like cutting off hands and feet and crucifying people is completely in accordance with Islam. I will show you that. By the way, this person made me go check, like, doubt what you're saying. And then when I checked, and they're like, no, this is all correct news. Because should I ban people? Like, a Tread, who are you? So, like, it's all made up. Stop this crap. Are you talking about this news? Because I just double checked. Everything Susanna is saying is on the news and unverified news. So I don't know what. Who are you referring? Should I ban Tread? Because they just come here and just say like, oh no, this is false, and it makes people wonder. Like, Susanna has double checked these things before she's reporting them here. So should I ban these people who just come and say this thing without actually add anything to this?
Go for it if you want.
If it was responding, it was talking about us, or it was responding to someone else. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so wild. So let me, Armin, there are certain details about this video that this man was filmed allegedly partaking in 2015. So I want to give you guys a description of this video, and Armin will immediately perk up and understand some of the significance of what happened in this video. And then Armin, I would like you to react and then explain the significance to other people who might not be familiar, but I know you're going to notice what I'm talking about. Okay. The video obtained by Global News that appears to match the one that resulted in the aggravated assault charge shows a prisoner wearing an orange jumpsuit and suspended from a pole in the desert. A man wearing a black robe and a cap bearing the ISIS logo then hacks the prisoner's limbs with a sword. His face is barely visible, but he appears to be a middle-aged man with henna-tinted beard. It is unclear whether the victim was already dead when he was dismembered. The video titled "Deterring Spies" was published in June of 2015 by the media arm of an ISIS branch in Western Iraq, according to an expert. Wait, no. There was a more thorough description that was really important. Okay, I think this is it. Sorry, I pulled up the wrong one. Okay. Wait. The 4-minute video titled "Deterring Spies" show a prisoner allegedly confessing before being let outside. He then appears suspended from a crucifix-like structure in the sand. The Arabic script in the video says that the enemies of God are to be killed, crucified, and have their hands and feet cut off. A middle-aged man is then shown wearing a black cap wearing the ISIS logo. So, using a sword, he then hacks off the feet and hands of the prisoner. His face is briefly visible in the video. It is unclear if the victim was still alive during the incident. So, Armin, please tell me why the details of that video and the details of the Arabic in that video are significant.
Well, here. Let me show you. There we go. This is Quran 533. And I always love showing people this Quranic verse because this comes after Quran 532. Wait, by the way, this is the Quranic verse that ISIS constantly uses to crucify people and cut off their hands and feet because they spread corruption in the land. And this Quranic verse comes exactly after the Quranic verse 532, which people often quote, including Obama in Congress, to show how peaceful Islam is. Right? So this is the Quran 532 is the Quranic verse that people usually quote because it's the one that says that if you kill one man, it's like killing all mankind. Without
no. You need, please emphasize this again. Please emphasize this again because this is so important. This is so important. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Okay. You want me to provide the full context of this?
No, you need to really lay it all out because this is something that is constantly brought up to show how wonderful Islam is. And it pisses me off.
All right, so the Quran 532 says, and people usually misquote it. People usually just say, like Obama quoted it. By the way, Obama later on regretted that. But it says that when they quote it, it says killing one man is like killing all mankind, right? And like, oh my God, so beautiful. Quran is saying, don't kill anybody. Killing is bad. Killing one person is like killing all mankind, right? But actually, if you read Quran 530,
the beneficence, the benevolence.
so beautiful.
Truly,
So
the religion of peace.
right. So, but read the full context. It says, on account of his deed, we decreed. Allah refers to himself with the royal we, like we means me, Allah, right? We decreed to the children of Israel, means the Jews, right? That if anyone kills a person, unless in retribution for murder or spreading corruption in the land, it is as if he kills all mankind. So first of all, they don't read this context, so you can still kill people if they are being naughty, if they're saying the things that they're not supposed to say, if they're doing blasphemy. So it's not saying killing is outright bad, but it is providing some context, right? And it also says that this is specifically our decree to Jews. This is not for, so you know how Muslims say you don't read the context. This verse was for specific people at a specific time. When they say it, it's actually not that. When they say it, if you read the verse, you realize that no, they're lying or they don't understand it. Those verses are actually for all people at all times. This is actually a verse that was for specific people at a specific time. This was for the Jews, right? It is as if he kills all mankind. And also they copied. Oh, here's another thing. When he says we decreed, is because the people who wrote the Quran did not understand that the Talmud is not the Torah, right? Because this part comes from the Talmud, and they misunderstood because Islam claims that the Torah is an earlier version of the Quran that the Jews changed, right? So it copies parts of the Torah as revelation of God to the Jews and copies those stories to the Quran. But when it says we decreed, it thinks this was a revelation from God to Moses, thinking that this was part of the Torah, but this actually comes from the Talmud, which nobody, including the Jews, thinks that this was a revelation. The Talmud is the rabbinic commentary on the Talmud. So the Quran actually takes the commentary of rabbis and acts like this was God's revelation. So something that is so obviously historically man-made, and even the Jews agree that this is man-made, the people who wrote the Quran misunderstood that as a revelation in the Jewish tradition, right? So it is as if we kill all mankind. Well, if anyone saves a life, it is as if he saves the lives of all mankind. By the way, the Torah has an explanation for this, which goes to Cain and Abel, but there's a context for that in the Talmud, but there's none here. So our messengers came to them with clear signs, but many of them continued to commit excesses in the land. So basically, these were some of the rules. So also, this is an anti-Jewish verse. The point of this verse is to say that Jews are murderers, and the reason why we decreed this specific verse to the Jews were because these are some murdering people that we had to specifically tell them to stop murdering, and they did not stop murdering. Like, even though we told them to stop murdering,
they keep on doing the choppy.
Yes. So basically, this is because the whole point of Islam is that God revealed the children of Abraham are the Jews and the Arabs, right? The sons of Ishmael are the Arabs, and the sons of Isaac are the Jews, right? So God was supposed to reveal his message to his chosen people. And a lot of people thought that the Jews were supposed to be the chosen people, like the Jews who are the sons of Abraham. But the whole point, God first and revealed his message to them to show everybody that they are not deserving, that the Arabs are deserving of the true revelation. So they were a test. They were like a trial and error to prove to the world that the true sons of Abraham that are supposed to are the chosen ones are the Arabs. So he revealed it, all this commandment. He gave all his commandments to the Jews, and the Jews betrayed the agreements. Like they didn't worship him properly. They constantly complained. They constantly sinned. And then when it was completely apparent that the Jews are not deserving of being God's chosen people, then Muhammad came as a prophet, and then it was revealed that okay, it's actually the Arabs that are supposed to get the revelation. Anyways, now we go to the next verse, which is the verse that this story is about. So remember, that story was supposed to be like, oh my God, Quran is so peaceful. Killing one man is like killing all mankind. So it's telling you not to kill. Well, the very next verse is telling you to kill. And this one, that verse was supposed to be a commandment to the Jews. Now the very next verse, this is the commandment for everybody now. This is the one that is telling you what to do. Those who wage war against God and his messenger and strive to spread corruption in the land. Okay, so it's very important for you to understand who we're talking about, right? Because it's not saying those who wage war against Muslims, right? He's saying those who spread war against God, right? So this is not a physical war. This is because a lot of people are like, oh, this is just a defense thing. But if you go actually read every tafsir and commentary by Islamic scholars, they're like, no, this is not about armed war. This verse is talking about Susanna and me, right? This is about us people. This is not people who pick up arms against Muslims. These are people who are spreading corruption and fighting against Islam, ideological war. People who speak against Islam, people who are trying to challenge Islam, right? Because you cannot basically fight God. Like, how do you fight God on a battleground, right? And again, it makes it very clear that this is about ideological war, not armed struggle, but saying who strive to spread corruption in the land. So it clarifies what it means by wage war against God and his messenger, right? Should be punished by death, crucifixion, the amputation of alternate hands and foot. They copied these from the pharaohs, by the way, or banishment from the land. A disgrace for them in this world, and then a terrible punishment in the hereafter, right? So whenever somebody quotes Quran 5:32 to tell you how peaceful Islam is, please remind them to read the very next verse. Just tell them to read the very next verse, right? But again, these are ISIS people copying exactly the Quranic message, the Quranic command.
Yeah, so that was a little educational experience for those who are not aware of what's really going on here, and how people use oh, it's so peaceful, it's so peaceful, and then it's like, read one further and you will find out more, and we have people in the middle of some freaking desert somewhere doing this to actual humans. And then apparently going to immigrate to Canada. So yeah, that needs to be figured out.
So here's my concern. Okay, and this might sound, a lot of people might hate what I'm saying here. Okay, when I see a story like this, I'm actually less concerned about the violence and terrorism, and it makes me concerned about something so much greater. I don't want to dismiss how significant it is for the victims of violent terror, right? But to me, that's just the tip of the iceberg, because if somebody like this is getting through, it's a lot more. There's a lot more news coverage and attention to violence and terrorist attacks, right? But when it comes to protecting these Western liberal nation states, I am more concerned about the foundations than I am about this act of terror or that knife attack, because we can sympathetically relate to that more, because we see a victim just getting knifed or somebody losing their child, and it emotionally hurts us when we see that specific, like, okay, action, the result, the victim, the cost, they're all in one picture, in one news story, right? But when a country is in decay or is progressing not as fast as it could, the significance of that cost is so much greater. And it's harder to connect the dots. Like if a country is not progressing fast enough, that means less people being able to pay their hospital bills, less people being able to, afford better food, having shorter lifespan, lesser quality of life, not being able to visit, I don't know, their father before they die. Like there's so, and if you add, if a country is not progressing fast enough, or is in decay, the added misery of all of that, if you add that all up, is so much more significant than the victims of terrorist attacks and violent crime. And when I see a story like this, I'm thinking if these people got in, that means there are so many other people that got in that are not violent, but just did not have the right values, that they are going to become citizens, and they're going to be voting, and they're going to be changing the demographic and the values and the beliefs, the average value and the direction that this country is going to go in. The traditions are going to be changing, the values are going to be changing, the methodologies are going to be changing, the politics is going to be changing, and all of that is going to make this country less equipped to deal with the modern world and progress faster. So to me, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And if someone like that could get in, how many other people are getting in that are not going to do criminal activity, but they are going to erode the foundations of Western society? That is my bigger concern. A lot of people who are like worried about migration, they keep talking about crime rates, right? And yeah, crime rates is a problem. But if they are committing, if the main people you're concerned about are committing crimes, then what about the ones who are not committing the crimes, but they have so many illiberal values? They're going to make your countries less liberal. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. I like this though. Mugiwara put it a different way, saying, Armin, that is a lot of words to say spread corruption in the land. They're spreading corruption in the liberal land.
Please do not crucify them. Do not.
No.
Okay.
No. That's not how we handle things in a liberal society. Yeah, me personally, I don't care for framing things in terms of West, because that's like promotes this dichotomy when really, capital L liberal values are universalist. And that's important to me. So for me, framing things in terms of West versus the other, it's not something that I find particularly helpful. I just care about what is capital L liberal. A capital L liberal. Okay? Or as I put it, I've become very conservative about my liberalism.
So it has three names. These values that we're defending, it has three names, right? Some people call them Western values. I don't like to call them Western values, because Western values include some shitty ideas and some good ideas, right? Western ideas includes Nazism and communism are also Western ideas, right? So there are certain Western ideas that are good. Not all Western ideas are good, right? So sometimes I say liberal ideas or Enlightenment values, right? But these days I'm noticing that I'm saying Western liberal values, because if I call them liberal values, a lot of the people who are watching us think that we're talking about leftism, and we're not talking about leftism. And when you say Western, but these values work wherever you apply them. It's not just a Western thing. Like if you apply this in Japan, as you see Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, they have become such advanced countries because they applied these values, even though they're not Western countries. But they did origin from Western European countries. So saying Western liberal, maybe it's giving credit to their origins. But again, the problem with calling them Western liberal is a lot of people, other countries might not adopt them because you're saying they're Western. So calling them Enlightenment value, and if you call the problem with Western is that it won't become universal. It has a harder time becoming universal if you keep calling it Western. But at the same time, if you call it Western, then Western people might defend it more because they feel like ownership over it, right? So maybe if I'm talking to Iranians, I'm not going to call them Western values, so that because it will work in Iran as well. But if I'm talking to Westerners, I will call it Western. They're like, yeah, this is our all values, because I want them to feel ownership over it, to try to protect it so that they don't lose it. But yeah, I don't know. It depends on Enlightenment values doesn't have the problem of calling it liberal, so a lot of people don't associate that with leftism. If I call it Enlightenment values, it doesn't have the problem of calling it Western values, because it has more potential of making it universal. And also Western doesn't make any sense, because Western values also have some bad ideas. But the problem with Enlightenment values is that people cannot relate to that. Like, people, it's a little bit more foreign. Like, what the hell are we talking about, right? Western values, people know what we're talking about. Liberal
I
values
actually think Western values is less specific, personally.
less. Yeah. What about Western liberal values? Like, I merge them together. Western liberal values,
as opposed to Eastern liberal values.
as
You know
as
what I
a
mean?
No, I mean, as in the sense that Western, not that they are supposed to only be for the West, as just to give credit for where the origins, because the origins is Western European countries, just to mention where they came from. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's important to some people. It's not personally important to me.
yeah. Anyway, guys, let me know which one of these names you prefer. We call these values Western
I just
liberal
call myself
values.
a big old capital L liberal.
Liberal, yeah.
Loser.
If you want to call them liberal values, then we have to tell people that this is not leftism, right? That's why some people say classical liberal. Should we say classical liberal? I don't know. We'll see.
No,
But what
because
do you guys?
I want to restore what is actually liberalism.
Okay.
Let's call it
Yep.
big
Liberal.
L liberalism.
Big L liberals. Okay.
Big
Sure.
L liberalism, man. And if people think that we're talking about some, what in the United States we frame as progressive, or what is actually like socialist or communist. Like, I was watching a video and people were calling out Hassan Piker for saying some really dismissive stuff to black people, like basically telling them what they should think to be racist, and the black people are like, no, I don't find that racist, I don't find it offensive, but he was telling them that they should, and they were calling Hassan a liberal, and they're like, oh, see, this shows the racism of liberals. I'm like, Hassan hates liberals. Like, he's not a liberal. So it's more like clarification than anything. I don't think we need a new word. I think we need to teach people what it actually means, and who is
Funny how
just a
both right
commie
leaning.
bastard.
It's so funny how both right leaning people and left leaning people use liberal as an insult. Like, the best ideas
Yeah.
that have made the world such a greater place, but everybody's using it as an insult.
Lifted millions of people out of poverty, and this is the thanks I get. There was one more point I wanted to make before we go to the super chats and some stuff in the live chat, which is basically one thing I was thinking about when I was researching this news story is how it really hit me, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, how, in a sense, normalized this is. And maybe it's because of my age and when I grew up. Like, when 9/11 happened, I remember it, but I was a little girl, right? So the vast majority of my life has been growing up as an American in a post 9/11 America, which is a very specific America. It has a very specific flavor. And that America, throughout my life, it's just become basically passe that there are planned or completed Islamic mass casualty terrorist attacks, to the point that what really hit me when I was reading this is that there are so many that happen or are stopped and make the news on an annual basis that I actually only talk on this show about a handful of them. Because I'm like, oh, we can't talk about this every time it happens. It'll get boring. Like, that's the level of the frequency of this violence that it's not even worth covering. The ISIS attacks that happen in Africa, like, barely make the front page and have a way bigger body count than what's happening outside of Africa nowadays. And I was just like, when was this accepted as normal? When was this just accepted and expected? Because when I hear about these planned attacks or attacks actually happening, like, all the time, partially because I try to keep up to date with these kinds of news, and, like, it's just accepted. That's insane to me, and, again, I don't know how much of this is just, like, for my generation, but it's almost as if I have to remind myself that this is not just a fact of the world. I Am I making sense?
Yeah. It's just been normalized.
It's just a matter of fact, and then the rest of the world is supposed to kid ourselves into making it seem as though all these attacks that are happening with such frequency at such a insanely disproportional volume. I'm not talking out of my ass. This is empirically what is true in regards to what ideology inspires most of these terrorist attacks that are happening around the world. And we're all supposed to pretend that they have nothing to do with a religion that people are explicitly citing as their source of inspiration for doing this violence as they're doing it. And none of us are supposed to believe that they're somehow connected. I don't know. Sometimes, because I've been involved in, this space for like so many years now, and I have to wake myself up into how crazy that actually is. Like, in case in point, when I was thinking about this, I thought about how Ayan Hirsi opens her book Heretic, and I just want to read this little passage because it really sticks with me. So the book starts with saying, on blank, a group of blank, heavily armed, black-clad men burst into a blank in blank, opening fire and killing a total of blank people. The attackers were filmed shouting, Allahu Akbar. Speaking at a press conference, President Blank said, we condemn this criminal act by extremists. Their attempt to justify their violent actions in the name of a religion of peace will not, however, succeed. We also condemn with equal force those who use this atrocity as a pretext for Islamophobic hate crimes. And basically, what she's saying is she's making the point that you can use that blank, that fill in the blanks text to talk about attacks that are happening constantly throughout the year, throughout countries, throughout the world, over and over and over and over again. Like, it almost becomes there's a word for this. It becomes a stereotype, just a matter of life. It just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. It happens with such frequency that we can just fill in the blanks for whenever it happens next. And yeah, and then later she goes on to say, for more than 13 years now, I have been making this simple argument in response to such acts of terrorism. My argument is that it is foolish to insist, as our leaders habitually do so, that the violent acts of radical Islamists can be divorced from the religious ideals that inspire them. Let me make my point in the simplest terms. Islam is not a religion of peace. And so I was just thinking about how insane it is that this happens with such frequency that we have, at least me, have become accustomed to it being a fact of life, par for the course, that it is how my country must conduct itself, that we must establish a security state to be able to ensure that these kinds of things don't happen domestically or abroad, while not acknowledging that there seems to be a common thread, that the vast majority of terrorist attacks happen for the sake of this idea, this religion, and year after year after year, we're still not talking about what that commonality is. People who do are still cast out and become persona non grata. I feel like since October 7th, like, there's kind of been a reawakening of the public to a certain extent. Like, you've kind of seen this mass response of everyday people kind of waking up and asking questions of like, how did this happen? How did we get to a point where now there's like people praising Hamas in the thousands on our city streets? Like, people kind of woke up and suddenly realized that this is an issue of concern, and now they're turning around and asking like, wait, how did we get to this point? And meanwhile, there's like thinkers and ex-Muslims and intellectuals who have been literally talking about this for decades now. You know, with or the riots in the UK. There have been intellectuals talking about how this is destined to happen for decades now. And instead, the whole time, people pointed at them and tarred them with saying the fact that you're talking about this concern is going to lead it to occur, which is so wildly unfair. So in a sense, it's kind of like all of a sudden the public is suddenly realizing that this is an issue of major concern, and now they're looking for answers. And I've kind of seen a push to look towards different voices and dissident voices towards helping to get some of those answers, right? So that's good, because I'm like, oh my God, finally the work of some of these incredible people can finally begin to be recognized. But at the same, it just like, why did it take this much? I don't know. That was a little bit of a Susie rant, Armin. What do you think?
No, it was very spot on. I enjoyed it. Thank you. Yeah. And I don't know if it's. Do you actually notice it getting better? Like people noticing it and calling it out, or is it getting worse? Like, what do you notice?
I think so. I've seen so many people like radically change their mind following October 7th. I mean, maybe I'm biased because I'm in this space like so thoroughly. It's what I do for work, and then it's also what I do, you know, here at Atheist Republic. Um, but and also in my personal life, because, you know, the people that have known me long before I ever started doing this stuff know that I'm interested in these issues, and they know that I'm someone that they can talk to about these issues without being condemned and treated poorly for asking a question. You know, merely asking the question, a taboo question. They know that that's what I swim in. So just these, you know, quote unquote, like normies, you know, like come and talk to me and ask me. And they're like, wait, so what do you think about this? Like, what does this mean? Like, blah, blah, blah. And I've been seeing more of that in my personal life, which I think is very interesting. But again, I don't know. People in the live chat in the comments, tell me if you've noticed anything different.
But it's
again,
just
maybe it's my biased experience.
So slow. It's so slow. Like the threat is progressing so fast, and we are now only to the point of some people beginning to realize that the concern is real. Like we're so far away from action. Right? This is the it's kind of like the, I don't know, the army of the, I don't want to say something that makes it seem like that I'm dehumanizing people, right? But it's just spreading so fast, and it's coming for the centers of civilization, and it's like right across, you know, the gates of of everything that we stand for. Like the enemies, the barbarians at the gate are almost like tearing down the gate, and they're just somebody in the king's hall. They're just some people beginning to realize like maybe we should do something about it. Like, okay, that's great that we're making that progress, but they're almost the gate is almost torn apart. Like we need to progress a lot faster. Like just talking about it is not enough. Like, what are policy changes? What are the actions that
I
we're
mean,
going
I totally get what you're saying, and frankly, it's made me understand the populist impulse a lot more. Um, because the dereliction of duty of elites across different countries is actually insanity and like beyond shameful. It's not even shameful. It's like, I mean, criminal. I don't know if it, I mean, not technically criminal, but that's how I feel about it. Like, I don't know. I don't know. And not to be cynical or rude, but it makes me happy to be an American because we don't stand for this shit. And except for a fringe in our country, we don't apologize for our strength, our power, and our dominance. And that makes me feel more
I,
secure.
okay, Susie, I appreciate and I celebrate the fact that you have been going through a patriotic thing now, and I love it and I enjoy it. But to be fair, to Europeans, and again, I know you could flex over Europeans all you want, and fair enough. But to be fair, you guys do have an ocean, a giant ocean between you and the Middle East. Okay, so that makes it a lot more. You could flex on the Canadians, more than the Europeans. Like it's easier to deal with this crap when you're so far away from it. But okay, fair enough.
I heard someone say that the liberals in Canada are what the right-wing evangelical conservatives in America wish the Democratic Party was. Like, the Liberal Party in Canada is what they wish the Democratic Party in the USA was.
Right.
Yeah. You can slick your borders with a bunch of maple syrup to help make it a little sticky speed trap so people are protected. How about that?
So Canada is actually on such a trying to bring in migrants as fast as it possibly can. And again, I wouldn't be against that if they weren't so on the lack of care and filtering process. Like, you could bring immigrants if the process was just a lot more strict. Again, we're not against migration, but Canada is just in such a hurry to bring migrants that there's so many weirdos who are making it in. Like, bring migrants, just be very picky about it. Like, you could afford to be picky about it. Be picky about it. Anyways, I'm not gonna rant about that. Anyways,
yeah, let's go through the comments and super chats. Tread is super butthurt saying, Susanna, what about Bangladeshi Hindus? Are they not human beings? It's all made up. Stop this crap. Tread, I don't know what your freaking problem is. We did literally talk about this.
Yes, we had an entire stream about this. I don't know what this guy is upset about.
Butthurt is hilarious. Arthur is asking, what is the Canadian Secret Service called? Oh, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to, I did that stream, but that was a collaborative work with between me, Dolly, and Susanna, and some of our volunteers from Bangladesh. Susanna was behind the scene giving me all the information. So yeah, we did an entire stream dedicated to Bangladesh. Yeah, but go on.
Arthur is asking, what is the Canadian Secret Service called? It's CSIS, right?
Yeah. Is it SI? Okay. Yeah, I think so.
There was also this comment.
I should know this by heart because yes, it's CISIS because they visited me at my home because I had Muslims threatening to bomb my speech at the UBC. So I had two officers from CSIS coming to, it's basically CSIS coming at my home, and I had to change the addresses. I had to move because of it. But anyways,
put that on your resume. Have you had CSIS at your front door? I have. Okay. I also wanted to address this comment by Judah Judalia, whatever, saying Arabs are the best people for dragging us into Islam by chains around our necks. I just wanted to highlight this and call it out and say that we don't appreciate anti-Arab racism on this channel. There's no need to generalize Arabs. This is not true. Also, throughout history, let us be entirely clear in attributing the cutting edge of Islamic criticism to Arabs across the world. We have a historical inheritance from them. They deserve to be recognized and celebrated for it because let's be clear, the Arabs have also been at the forefront of the threat and persecution and sacrifices that they have made for the sake of combating barbarity, irrationalism, and superstition within their societies. And I am proud to say that I personally know dozens of Arabs who are absolutely incredible in what they're willing to sacrifice in their life for the sake of their free expression and for the sake of criticizing Islam. And I would be willing to bet on everything that I own that you would not be willing to sacrifice half of what they have sacrificed. So on behalf of them, I would like to say fuck off. Yeah, I don't tolerate that.
Wait, before you go to the next message, when it comes to celebrating Arabs, can I celebrate the first ex-Muslim in the world? Abdullah ibn Sa'd ibn Abi Sarh, I think, right? So this is the first ex-Muslim living at the time of Muhammad himself. The first ex-Muslim in the world became ex-Muslim while Muhammad was still alive. Right. So it says, according to historians, he was the main scribe for Prophet. After noticing linguistic errors in the revelations. By the way, this is according to Muslim themselves. Okay, so this is according to their own history. So after noticing linguistic errors in the revelations, and the Prophet making changes as per his own suggestions. He was like, you know what? This would be phrased better like this. And Muhammad, like, okay, write it like that, right? He escaped from Medina to Mecca. He exposed the Quran as fabrication and not from any god. Then the Prophet ordered his killing in retaliation. It was the first apostate murder in Islam. So the first ex-Muslim in Islam was also the first apostate who was murdered because of his apostasy for Islam. So he was an Arab. I will celebrate him as the first ex-Muslim in history.
And all of the Arab ex-Muslims in our community, of which there are a ridiculous amount. Okay, so now let's go to the super chats we got.
Our Godfather.
Our Godfather. Metaphysical Lobster gave a super chat saying, can you, confronting the archetypal healer within the metaphysical substrate, balance chaos and order to uncover meaning and transcend suffering toward God? Okay, you sound like someone that watched one Jordan Peterson lecture one time and now think that you are some intellectual titan.
I think he's joking because look, he has
Okay,
lobsters.
yeah.
He has lobsters as his profile too, so that's a Jordan. He's making fun of Jordan.
Okay, so thank you for the super chat. Forrest gave us £2, $2 Canadian, just with a little crucifix in it. Thank you for sending your money to the godless. Sid gave a super chat saying Khalistanis have been infiltrating Canada for long, but they don't attack the West, so they are accepted. No wonder these jihadists use the same tactics to immigrate. Canada needs to revisit its asylum laws. I would agree, but Khalistanis have attacked the West. I mean, as a Canadian, Sid, I think you know that the worst terrorist attack in Canadian history was the Khalistanis. For those who are not aware, the Khalistanis are a militant Sikh separatist movement within India who basically want their own Sikh religious state. They're almost like Sikh ISIS, like they're pretty freaking intense. Yeah, I do not support the Khalistani movement. I support the sovereignty of India.
Yes, we do. But it's not just the asylum laws; it's also the like all migration laws need to revisit. Like even if you're not like a refugee and you're coming in for work visa and student visa, like we need to do some more serious checking on who we're letting in, either when it comes to asylum or through work visa or through student visa or through people who are bringing in their families because they were accepted in. Like that's like all of that needs to be revisited. And maybe here's the thing, or maybe just stop until you could figure out how to handle all of it. I'm not saying stop migration, but stop migration. Maybe put a pause on everything until you could manage this more orderly. Like, okay, anyways.
Okay, next super chat. I don't know how to pronounce this, but thank you for the super chat, the 15 shekels. Saying George R. Martin was right. Westeros will fail to inbreed Targarist ideology. Will fall to inbred Targarist. Okay, I didn't read enough Game of Thrones to understand this reference.
Well, basically, so the Targaryens are inbreds, right? And they're taking over the world. They were at some point they were taking over the world, and he's basically he's comparing, I don't know, the Islamist to Targaryens because there's inbreeding problem among them as well. That's what my understanding.
Okay. Sid gave a super chat saying just because someone votes for the left does not mean they are not racist or homophobic. Extremist Muslims despise white liberal culture, but vote for them because white liberals will be more open to immigration. Again, Sid, okay. I don't know how much you understand how much within the radical sphere there actually is not. It depends, right? It depends a lot, but a lot of them don't even believe in voting. Like when you make these statements, I think you generalize a lot to the point that it's not accurate and it's easy to discredit like what you're trying to get at. Because there are like in the UK, complete blocks of Muslim voters that have broken from Labour and caused Labour to lose entire, they don't call them districts, constituencies, surgeries, whatever the Brits call them, but lose entire pockets of Labour support because they decided to break entirely from the Labour Party because of Labour is not hating on Israel enough. And I mean, they got Jeremy Corbyn. Like, so it's not that one-dimensional. Armin, what do you think about his comment? Because I understand what he's getting at, but it's doesn't completely ring true.
Let me see. Just because one votes for the left does not mean they are not racist or homophobic. Well, I mean, yeah,
Sure.
it doesn't mean that. Extremist Muslims despise white liberal culture, but vote for them because white liberals will be more open to immigration. Extremist Muslims, again, it really depends, right? So many extremist Muslims do not agree with voting for these. I mean, I think it's actually the problem is that the more moderate Muslims are voting for these people because they're pro minority. The more extreme you get, the more you will see that they don't agree with voting for any of these parties, right? I mean, they're not as strategic. Like I've noticed, they're not as strategic. They're not like the reason why the meme works very well and it looks a lot more strategic is because as a collective or as a meme, it ends up being a lot more. It seems a lot more guided or planned or with purpose. But when you look at actually individual Muslims, they're not saying like, okay, I as an extreme Muslim will vote for these parties so that they open the door in, so that the more Muslims could come in, so that we could have an ummah. They're like, it's not like individually, that's not their narrative. Individually, the more extreme Muslims that you find, the more likely they are to say like, no, don't vote for any of these. They're all the same. Left, right, all of these are Westerners, they're kafirs. We shouldn't be aligning with them. It's more the moderate Muslims who would vote for them. That's my understanding. That's what I think. But we should go through these because I want to see the next news. So let's go through this.
Sid gave a super chat saying Islam is a religion of peace. Peace is a view everywhere. This other same person gave this other super chat saying it's not Islamophobia, it's Islamophilia. I would say it's useful idiocy or capitalizing on the back of Muslim grievance to remain relevant, frankly. Vlad gave a super chat saying it's humanist values, Renaissance humanist values. In terms of the debate about if it's Enlightenment values or liberal values or whatever.
So no, it's the Renaissance was a move towards focusing more on humanism, yes, and also more on empiricism, rather than. So we have three cities that I like to think that the Western civilization was founded upon, right? Jerusalem, Athens, and Florence. So Jerusalem represents the Judeo-Christian tradition. Athens represents philosophy, rationalism, and the Greco-Roman tradition. And Florence represents empiricism, humanism, a move away from the afterlife to this life and focusing on arts and wealth. But then all of this mixed together resulted in enlightenment, in the age of enlightenment, a couple of centuries, like the 18th century, which basically brought all of this together and actually turned it into a philosophy or a set of values that were very in a very detailed and nuanced way organized and brought together to build something, because these other things before it was not really like the Renaissance was not a guided construction of a philosophy of how we think about these things. It was just a general organic movement towards a direction. It was the age of enlightenment that brought all of this together and turned it into a way of looking at the world and basically documented in a way that other people could understand it. So the Renaissance was a movement. It didn't provide the values that you could point to and like, oh, this value, and that value. It was just a spark that eventually led to the age of enlightenment that actually listed those values and provided the argument for it. By the way, the age of enlightenment is not complete, because the age of enlightenment, I think the values that it provided to us was a little bit too mechanical rather than evolutionary, rather than more organic. Like if you see what the age of enlightenment provided was a set of principles that you were supposed to always follow for nations or society to get better. But as liberalism grew, because liberalism has its roots in the age of enlightenment, but as liberalism grew, it became more organic. Rather than having a strict guideline for what to do, it became more of a competitive survival of the fittest values for them to eventually grow to something that works for society. Anyways, I don't want to get into so much detail, but yeah.
Ahmed of Kemet gave 50 Egyptian, I don't know what you call your currency, reals? I don't know. Since October 7th, Arab Islamists think they gained a lot of non-Muslims to their cause. At least that's the Middle East point of view. And I'm sure they feel that way. Look at what was happening on college campuses around the US. Now, those were literally exploited by Iran, and we have actually now national security agencies openly talking about how we know that Iran was funding some of them. And again, why aren't we talking about this as a country? But when you actually go look at the statistics, like that phenomenon was actually a huge minority of campuses. And Americans are sick and tired of this stuff. If you go look at Harvard Caps Harris polls on how Americans feel about the conflict in Gaza, like last month they were saying like, yeah, go into Rafah, finish the job. The majority of Americans. So it causes a big splash. It's very visible.
It's just a loud minority. It's not. They're not a majority, but the direction is in their favor, even though they're still a minority. By the way, it's Egyptian pounds.
Oh, thank you. I don't know what this is saying. Dolly is saying Susie has no chill today. I really have no chill today. I don't know what it is. Sid gave a super chat saying Quran was written nearly a decade or two after Muhammad's death. Muhammad never saw a Quran himself. Was it not Zayd ibn Thabit who compiled the final version under a tight deadline? No wonder the Quran is total garbage. Armin, you know more about the
Yeah,
history
so
than me.
even according to their own narratives, Quran was not turned into a book during Muhammad's time. It was turned into a book by Osman. It was Osman who canonized under his order, at least it was canonized. However, all of this is fake. All of this is fake story. None of this actually happened. This is according to the Islamic narrative. What actually happened, the Quran was created by the Umayyad and the Abbasid dynasty. I mean, it was canonized and compiled. The Quran is Quran. The evolutionary process started before Muhammad even was born. We have parts of the Quran that actually predates Muhammad's birth. This whole narrative of what actually Muhammad is even a fake character. Like, there was no guy named Muhammad. It was one guy that united Arabs together, and none of his views actually is the same as what what Muslims call Muhammad. In fact, actually, the guy that united the Arabs to go attack Jerusalem, he actually united with the Jews. And if you actually look at the first documents that we have about what his views were, he was a Zionist. Did you know that, Susie? Like, the Quran, and by the way, the Quran was not a book. It was just like different books around that eventually some time the Abbasid dynasty or the Umayyad dynasty and Abbasid dynasty decided to turn it into one book and attribute it to this guy named Muhammad. The Muhammad was not even a name of a person. Muhammad referred to Jesus Christ as, you know, as a adverb, as an adjective. Well, actually, as a it's actually complicated. I have to go read the book that I read about this again. But yeah, so Muhammad refers to Jesus. It wasn't referring to that the king, the guy, that the leader that united all the Arabs. But the first thing that we know about, the first document that we know about the guy that eventually turned into Muhammad, was he was telling the Jews that Israel belongs to them. Like, this is their land. So he was the OG Zionist, right? He was fighting with the Jews, for the Jews, to get them Israel. So there you go. Muslims, your prophet, the guy that your prophet was made out of was a Zionist.
Kenny gave 5 Atheist Republic memberships. Thank you, Kenny, for supporting the channel. And that's a good reminder to everyone that if you want to support the channel and the work that we do here, you can do that by joining the channel. We also... Yeah?
Finish your...
No, go ahead.
Okay, if you guys want to read all of this, this is a good book to read. Did Muhammad Exist by Robert Spencer. It has all the references. Like, you don't have to trust Robert Spencer. He has all the references for all the things that he's saying in this book. So go read that.
Well, speaking of Robert Spencer, the next super chat saying Robert Spencer's Jihad Watch keeps a record of Islamic terrorism. Thank you both for your efforts. I don't know. Robert Spencer, a lot of his stuff jumps to some conclusions. And I don't appreciate that. It doesn't help his credibility. Yeah. So if you know, that's just to say to people, like, go keep a grain of salt and do your own follow-up research. I don't use him as a source for a reason. Sid Dave gave a super chat saying Khalistanis blew up an Air India flight which had 300 Indian origin people on it. If they blew up an Air Canada flight with 300 white Canadians on board, then the Canadian attitude would be different than Khalistan. Do you really think that's true? I mean, Iran blew up a passenger plane full of a bunch of Canadian citizens, not like there was a Ukrainian flight outside of, you know, on the other side of the world. And Canada has been involved in like personally prosecuting the Islamic Republic because of this. I mean, like,
they haven't done a good job. But maybe he's right back then. Maybe not now.
Yeah, this was the 80s.
Yeah, maybe in the 80s, maybe he's right. Maybe he's right. Maybe in the 80s it's true. I don't know. I don't know how to test this claim. It's an unfalsifiable claim, so there's no way to evaluate it.
Asian American is saying my algorithm is leftist voters criticizing leftist non-voters, comparing their revolution that never comes to the evangelical rapture. That is hilarious. I love that. This socialist revolution of America is the rapture that never comes. You'll love to hear it. Asian Americans is saying everything west of the Himalayas is the West. Facts.
I mean,
This is why I don't like to use the term. It's so diffuse.
yeah, it refers to certain ideas, not a certain geography. Because we call Australia Western.
Yeah, I just don't find it useful. It's like everyone operationalizes that term differently. So I'm just gonna talk about big L liberalism. AJ gave a super chat just saying hello, Armin and Susanna. Well, hello, AJ. Thank you.
Yeah.
Erican gave a super chat saying Arminists and Susannists unite. Thank you. Erican gave another super chat saying there's a reason Yasser Qadi said that there's holes in the narrative.
Hold on. Before you read that one, we should define Arminism and Susanism, and find the similarities and differences between them. We could do that. We could write like a paragraph for each.
I don't feel compelled to start my own ism ideology though.
Okay, well, speak for yourself then. I will do that. I will. Wait, I didn't read that because I interrupted you while you were reading that. What did Erkin say?
Well, I don't know where it is now, but I read it a second ago.
Oh, here. There's a reason Yasser Qadi said there's holes in the narrative. Exactly. Okay, got
it. And last one, Sid gave a super chat saying my favorite Quran verse is where Allah sends a revelation to Mo's dinner guests to not stay too long at his house after dinner as it displeases him. I do love all the revelations that are just about inconveniences in Muhammad's life.
Yeah, Aisha has a quote on that. Did you know?
That it made her suspicious, basically.
No, Aisha. Right? We have Sahih hadith of Aisha saying like, what it seems like your God just brings down a verse when you have a issue that needs to be solved. Like whenever you have an inconvenient problem, there just happens to be a verse about it. This is according to Muslims themselves. Aisha was saying that, like, oh wow.
She's like, wait a minute. I'm noticing a pattern.
But, coincidence? Yeah.
I think not. Oh my god. So let's go to the next news.
Right. By the way, I think Aisha, this is the reason why after Muhammad died, okay, if these stories, like, let's imagine these stories are true, okay? But in my world, the way I like to imagine it, we have so many hadiths of Aisha about Muhammad, right? Mm-hmm. That Muhammad said this, Muhammad said that, and sometimes they contradict each other, and Aisha was confronted about that, right? And I think Aisha learned from Muhammad. So Aisha, when Muhammad died, Aisha was 18 years old, and Aisha became a major source of hadith. And she was just making it up as she go, because she was like the favorite wife of Muhammad. So she kept on saying, well, Muhammad said this, Muhammad said that. So everybody like, okay, I guess Muhammad said that. And you're like, okay, if Muhammad could bring down verses from God to say that people should do this to make life more convenient for himself, well, now that Muhammad is dead, I could do the same by just bringing up hadith. Every time I want people to follow a new ruling, I would just attribute a hadith from Muhammad. So she was leading the ummah by just making up hadith, which is fine. Interesting. Yeah. All right.
Yes, they say if you don't beat them, join them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Carol saying Aisha really unloaded after Mo died. Yeah. All right. Can we clap for the next news?
We are going to clap because abusers are being brought to justice and sending a strong message in Australia. That's where we're clapping. Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Next news.
Next news. In a landmark case, Australia has witnessed its first imprisonment under the country's forced marriage law, shedding light on a tragic tale of cultural pressure and filial duty gone awry. Shakina Mohammed Jan, a Hazara refugee from Afghanistan, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for coercing her 21-year-old daughter, Rukia Hadari, into a marriage that ultimately led to her murder. The case unfolded when Hadari was forced to marry Muhammad Ali Halimi in 2019, only to be killed with him only 6 weeks later. Judge Fran Dalziel, presiding over the case, highlighted the conflicting desires of the mother and daughter, stating, quote, she wanted to pursue study, and get a job, referring to Hadari's aspirations that were cut short. The court heard how John, driven by social pressure and desire to restore her family's reputation after Hadari's previous divorce, arranged the marriage despite her daughter's wishes. This case has brought to the forefront the complex interplay of cultural norms, parental authority, and individual rights in Australia's multicultural society, while also exposing the potentially deadly consequences of forced marriages. So, okay, I did a lot of looking into the background and story of this case. So, I'm going to kind of unload as much background information as I can recall. And then, Armin, I want you to help explain to the audience. I want you to go Mufti Armin and say, because there's lots of people that say that this is not Islamic. And so I want you to go Mufti Armin and explain to people what about this is and is not Islamic, because I think that's important to understand. So let's go into the background. So there was this family, and this family was Hazara refugees from Afghanistan. Now, the Hazaras are an ethnic and also religious minority within Afghanistan, mostly Shia, and they are legitimately heavily persecuted in Afghanistan. And so this family fled to Australia. Now, I am not exactly sure when. It's not entirely clear to me when they immigrated to Australia. This family included the mother, who was the one who's being sent to prison, as well as a number of other children and daughters. The victim, Sakina, is the youngest child. And her father was murdered by the Taliban when she was only like 1 month old. So they immigrated to Australia with just the mother. And again, the timeline isn't entirely clear to me, but what we do know is that Sakina was actually a survivor of child marriage. Sakina, at some point, had been married when she was 15 years old in a religious ceremony. So what happens is a lot of people will essentially do the religious ceremony, the spiritual ceremony of their marriage, and then they never got it registered with the government. So this is all happening under the radar, right? Because that's not allowed. that's not allowed. But as a matter of reality, she was a child bride. Sakina was married when she was 15 years old. She got divorced when she was 20 years old. And when she was so now she's an adult, and she has already in her life survived a child marriage. Well, the details of why she got divorced are not clear, and frankly, it's not relevant. But because Sakina was divorced, this was seen as a great dishonor upon the family. And in their tight-knit community, and I can't remember exactly what region they're in. I think they were in a town in Victoria in Australia. I can't remember off the top of my head. But this town has a tight-knit, predominant Hazara community. And her divorce was seen as dishonorable in the community or by her mother. And Hasina, having already survived a child marriage, an illegal child marriage in her short life, is telling everyone, I don't want to get married. I want to go to school. I want to go marry someone for love. And through multiple stages over the course of months, she was coerced and forced into a forced marriage. Now, people need to understand that forced marriage, according to the Australian authorities, is the most common slavery-like offense, is the term that the authorities used, the most common slavery-like offense in Australia, with over 500 cases being reported since 2018. And there are currently, I think, at least 14 to 20 cases being prosecuted right now. And the sentencing is coming down for many of these other cases, but this is the first. And to the point that this girl, Sakina, she went to the authorities and told the authorities, or a social worker that brought her in contact with police, that she was being forced into a marriage. And they offered her various services and she refused. Because people need to understand that it's it's so tough. Like, whatever choice you choose, it's going to be a really dangerous situation for you, basically. If you try to use the police to moderate your relationship and conversations with your family, that's going to bring a sense of dishonor upon the family. So, like, that's not a good option. If you try to straight up run away from your family and go into protective custody, that's not always a good option, because there was a case that we have talked about that also happened in Australia, where there was a girl who was trying to run away from her family because she wanted to go date her, like, white Australian boyfriend. And they tracked her down and kidnapped her over it. I think they might have murdered her. I can't remember. But they, at the very least, tried to literally kidnap her in a parking lot of like a grocery store in public. It was a huge case that we've talked about before. Australians in the chat, please correct me if I'm wrong about the details about if she died or not. I think she survived, actually. Anyways, so that goes to show that just straight up running away is not always a good option either. Not to mention the fact that you have to leave behind like everything you've ever known, right? So at some point the authorities got involved, but then like no further action was really taken. This girl ended up being forced into a marriage. She had one nikah, like one marriage ceremony, which is essentially a contract signing. There was a bride price paid of about $14,000. And then she was saying, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Please, can we like just make this not happen before we have a second nikah? She was not abided by. Her mother told her, no, I'm your mother. You are not my mother. I'm making this decision for you. You're doing this. Second nikah happened. Okay, so then she enters into this marriage with this man, Muhammad Ali Halimi. And things are already off to a bad start. He is complaining that she will not cook, she will not clean for him, that she will not have sex with him, she's refusing sex with him. And within less than 6 weeks, less than 2 months, this man, the day before he murdered her, he sent a video to her family complaining about how she's being disobedient. And then the next day, brutally murders her. And honestly, I don't want to talk about the details of how that happened because, to honor her memory. It was horrific. That man is now serving life in prison for that murder that occurred in 2019. And now her mother is the first person in Australia to be sentenced and sent to jail for participating in this forced marriage. And the prosecutors are saying, we are doing this to send a message. And I really liked that they were being clear about that. They came out and said, we are doing this as a deterrence. And this is really important because people need to understand that for there to be a cultural shift within certain communities, there needs to be a clear understanding of consequences for engaging in certain behavior that is understood to be unacceptable in that country. And so this woman her mother is now being sent to jail. The maximum penalty was 7 years. She's being sent to prison for 3 years, and she can possibly go on remand after 1 year. And they talked about why they're sending her to jail because she did not seem to understand why what she did was wrong or show remorse for it. during the court proceedings. Frankly, I think part of this has to do with the fact that her mother herself is a victim of a child marriage and a forced marriage. And that is just par for the course. And Sakina, being the youngest, saw all of her children or all of her siblings being married off throughout her life. And so anyways, this mom is just being sent to jail. And the authorities are being like, no, we're cracking down on this. And there are other cases of forced marriages that Australia is now pursuing very heavily that they're going to be bringing sentencing against soon. But this is the very first. So this was a huge landmark. And I'm really glad to see that the Australian authorities are taking this very seriously and doing this to send a message, because this is very serious. And I have personally met people. People need to understand that forced marriage and honor violence and honor-based violence is complicated. It has a lot to do with the family feeling like they must restore their honor, that it is a way to, it is a function of a patriarchal society that needs to control the image of women because it reflects upon them. It's a inheritance, I guess, for lack of a better term, of tribal society, of group identity that supersedes the collective group identity, supersedes the individual rights of particularly females, and violence and coercion is used to keep them in check and in line. And honor killing is the completion of honor-based violence, really. But also forced marriage is essentially a form of slavery in many senses. And I have personally met people who were forced into child marriage as basically a function of slavery. And then within their forced marriage, they were forced into labor that they didn't want to do and were not compensated for. And that happened in America, and that also happened legally, because there's lots of states where child marriage is legal with certain loopholes. That's a side point. So I just wanted to provide all those details about this case because I think it's really important. And so, Armin, now let's circle back to what I originally told you, because there's lots of people that would say, they would rebut, and they would say, actually, Islam does not support this. Consent within marriage is important. And then the concept of consent itself is very important. So I would like you to kind of unpack that for people.
Well, actually, they are correct. Okay, so this is what you're saying here is not Islamic. So I want to be fair here. I want to show you the problems that comes this story, the things that you could blame Islam for, and the things that you can't blame Islam for. Okay, we don't want to be, we don't want, just because we're anti-Islam, we don't want to just exaggerate and say everything that, any bad messaging that we could imagine, and Islam endorses that, right? There are some of them. I will show you the hadith that shows that actually, no, you cannot force somebody into marriage. You could force sex slaves to have niqab with you and basically have sex with them, basically because they're sex slaves, right? But you cannot do that to free Muslim women. You cannot do that. However, the hadith that kind of tells you that is problematic in its own way. And let me show you what I'm talking about, right? So here, Exhibit A, for why this is the hadith, and you can see this is Sahih Bukhari. And guys, by the way, see, like we are being fair here. Like if you could trust us not to exaggerate the problems with Islam. You cannot forced marriages are not as endorsed in Islam, right? So this is Sahih Hadith, Sahih Bukhari. So you can see it's a fundamental, like it's a inseparable part of Islamic teaching, basically. It says, I asked the Prophet Muhammad, "O Allah's Messenger, should the woman be asked for their consent to their marriage?" He said, yes. So this is a pretty straight up answer. Yes, they should be asked for their consent. Okay, so there's no denying that the Muhammad in Islam teaches you that they have to be asked. You cannot forcefully make somebody to marry. However, the second part makes it a bit problematic, right? So we were trying to be fair, but look at the second part. I said a virgin, if asked feels shy and keeps quiet. So if you ask a virgin for their consent and they don't say anything because they're shy, Muhammad says, her silence means her consent. Okay, so that's bad. Okay, so so can you silence is consent? Yes, according to Muhammad, silence means consent. Okay, so if she's shy, if she's under pressure, if she's worried that her father would be angry and she doesn't say anything because she's like feeling the wrath of the family, Muhammad says her silence means consent. Okay, so that's horrible, and this is part of Islam. However, this story, that this hadith shows that this story is not allowed because this woman was not silent, wasn't she? Was she? This woman like, no, I don't want this marriage, right?
Oh, she was communicating this constantly. She went to the police at some point.
Right.
Like in the
Guys,
prosecution, the part of the prosecution is establishing that everyone, including the mother, knew that she didn't want it and coerced her into it.
right. So this hadith shows that this story is not allowed. What this mother did is not allowed by Islam. However, look, guys, even when we're trying to be charitable to Islam and say, like, no, Islam does not allow you forced marriage, it still somehow manages a way to become horrific. Okay. But there are some other things that I noticed happen in the story that is endorsed by Islam, right? So, for example, when so this woman did not have sex with the husband, she was refusing sex with their husband, right? Is that correct in the story, right?
Yeah.
So Islamically, that's not allowed. You cannot refuse sex to your husband. So I will bring the next hadith, right? Allah's messenger, meaning Muhammad, said, if a husband calls his wife to his bed, i.e., to have sexual relation, and she refuses and causes him to sleep in anger, the angels will curse her till morning. Right? So basically saying it's a sin for you to refuse sex to your husband. And also, we all know of this Quranic verse that if you are being disobedient to your husband, your husbands are supposed to beat you. So this will make marital rape possible. Basically, the women are taught that they're not supposed to refuse sex to their husbands, and their husbands are told that if they fear rebellion from their wives, they're supposed to. I mean, they're supposed to try some other ways at first, but if it doesn't work, they're supposed to beat them. And there's that, and also, yeah. So basically, these are the ones that I want to show you. They asked Prophet Muhammad. Yeah, okay, so that's another hadith that confirms the same things that I'm showing you. So what do you think? So basically what this mother did is un-Islamic. She cannot force somebody into marriage. However, that's not a defense of Islam, because you could see that there are a lot of other problematic things with the Islamic teaching. But it is true. You cannot technically force a free Muslim woman cannot be forced into marriage. That is for slaves. That is what you could do with slaves.
What about all the instances where like the only consent that matters is the consent of the father or the guardian?
Well, that's basically in effect. It turns, even if that's not allowed, in effect it turns out like that because the girls are taught to just they're supposed to obey their fathers, right? So technically they should ask, if you refuse, then the marriage is not supposed to happen. But are you going to refuse when your father wants you to marry this man and you're supposed to obey your father, and your father and your family being angry with you is such a something you fear, like your entire life you've been taught and to that you have to follow what your father and your family wants. And I mean, you're at, like, if you, and nobody technically comes and asks for your consent. Like, in effect, it doesn't happen then. Like, but are you going to say something with all the pressure? And also, Islamically, you're also supposed to listen to your parents and do what they're telling you. So you can refuse, but are you going to, with all that pressure? Even if you don't want to, you're just going to submit
Well,
because you don't
especially
want to.
considering women are explicitly threatened with honor killing on the basis of their disobedience and the way in which they're not conducting themselves correctly.
Yes.
It's so.
By the way, the
I think
consent. Yeah.
a good argument is, especially because of the tribal nature of Islam and the structure that it was built around at the time, it helps sustain essentially tribal norms throughout time. So, and we talked about this when we were talking about cousin marriage the other week, where it's like, well, I mean, there's ways in which it is or is not completely Islamic, but the structure of like bride prices or inheritance incentivizes that behavior.
Cousin marriage is Islamic. Are you talking cousin
No,
marriage?
I mean, but it's not like what's the way? It's not as it's not like mandated or something, is what I'm saying. But there are many other instances within the construct of Sharia that incentivize that kind of behavior because it's upholding a certain kind of tribal based structure. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. Also, like honor killing. Like honor killing is not endorsed in Islam, but Islam is still responsible for it, because if you put all the teachings together, you could see how it will lead a society to do more honor killing, even if it doesn't mandate it, and even if it condemns it. It creates an environment where honor killing will happen more. So it's one of those things. For example, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Right, the teachings of Islam leads to honor killing, even if Islam is not teaching you to do honor killing. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's a difficult distinction, but I think it's important. Okay, so let's go to the super chats. Oh, we got one super chat from Bull McLeod saying the diversity section of my jobs training videos says respect arranged marriages and stuff like this is all I can think of.
Oh, they teach it. They teach him diversity training. They at work, apparently they're supposed to watch diversity training videos, and in those diversity training videos, they tell him that they should respect their own marriages. And when he watches that, he gets reminded of stories like this.
Ay. Look, I'm sure that there are structures in which arranged marriage is not inherently abusive. Okay. I'm just saying that a lot of times the track record is not great.
I mean, marriage is bad, but it's forced marriage is worse. I mean, I don't have any 100%. Problem with just if you could get out of it. Like, let's say, hey, like, we arrange your marriages, and then you grow up, and like, yeah, we don't want to go through with it. Arranged marriages are fine as long as you could opt out once you grow up, I think.
Yeah, and also what kind of arranged marriages? I mean, there are people that have their marriages arranged between families when children are born.
Yeah, but if you grow up and say like, "Hey, thanks, family, but I'm gonna say no." And the family, if there's no pressure behind it, it's fine, I think.
I'm just thinking about this Iranian film I watched about that recently. Oh my god, sorry, it was so tragic. So let's go to the next news.
Okay, do I have the next correct news up? Okay, yes. All right,
next news. The Islamic Republic silenced her song Hijabless Female Singer Jailed. In a troubling display of Iran's ongoing suppression of artistic expression and women's rights, young singer Zahra Ismaili was arrested on August 3rd, 2024 for performing without a hijab in public spaces. This act violates both Iran's mandatory hijab law and the ban on public singing, highlighting the severe restrictions placed on women and artists in the Islamic Republic. Ismaili, known for her viral videos singing in metro stations and parks, was taken into custody with her whereabouts unknown, leaving her family in distress. Faravaz Faradin, an Iranian singer-activist, condemned the arrest, stating, quote, "Iranian authorities once again fabricate charges just to justify their crackdowns on female singers." This incident is part of a broader pattern of repression in Iran, where women are prohibited from singing or dancing in public due to conservative interpretations of Islam. Despite these risks, many Iranian women continue to challenge these restrictions, using social media to share their performances and voice their dissent. Ismaili's arrest, along with recent crackdowns on other artists like rapper Tumaj Salihi and Grammy Award winning singer Shervin Hajipour, underscores the Iranian regime's intensifying efforts to silence artistic expression and enforce gender apartheid. So, I wanted to cover the story because I always think that it is important to celebrate and also raise awareness about the people who are making great sacrifices and taking great risks to challenge freaking Islamic fascism, frankly.
Yeah, that's good. And this is the video that you wanted me to show of her?
Yeah, this is one of her
This is
one
why
of
she
her
was
videos
arrested?
that was going viral.
Is this the video that got her arrested? So look, she's hijabless in Iran. By the way, in Iran right now, many women are hijabless in the streets. And the reason why they're not getting arrested is because there's just too many of them, right? But if you are hijabless and you become a focus of attention, then they will spend their resources to come arrest you. So, for example, if you make a music video hijabless, right? But you can see even in the background, you can see there's a Chadori woman, and right next to the Chadori woman, there are two hijabless women, and even to her left, there's a hijabless woman sitting. All of that is illegal, but none of them are getting arrested because there's just too much. Like, people are just openly violating the law, knowing that there's not enough resources for them to be arrested. But they arrested her because she just got a little attention with her music video. So let's listen to this. So it's a traditional. So it's not a music video. It's just like an amateur recording of her in the subway. Just having fun in the subway. Is this
There
where
was
she got arrested?
there was another video of her singing without a hijab, Amy Winehouse, like literally in a public square. But I didn't want to show that one just because I know you're sensitive that it might flag for copyright.
Right.
But Armin, I wanted to get your reaction as an Iranian. Like, if you, because I know how you say that when you see how videos of how women are walking around, like in Tehran now, you think it's a normal video, and then you remember that it's in Iran, and then you feel like you're seeing someone naked. So I wanted to get your reaction in terms of, like, if you were in Iran and you saw this, what would you be thinking?
Well, I mean, Iran, like, the reason why it's weird to me is because I left Iran more than 20 years ago, and I'm not used to seeing so many hijabless women in the streets, right? But in Iran, nobody's shocked by this anymore. This is the norm now, right? In many places, in some places, that if you're hijabi, that's the you know. So I have wasted so much time just like going on YouTube, just watching videos of people walking in the malls in Iran. I'm like, is this Iran? Like, because I'm like, people go and record. Like, let me see if I could find an example for you guys. Like, Tehran streets. I have spent, because I can't go back to Iran, right? Because if I go back to Iran, I get arrested. And Iran is so different now that I wish I could go back and like experience it with this new Iran. Let me actually show you what's this is the, like, these are the types of video I just look at, just average normal looking videos that nobody like many people might not find interesting, like this. Share this tab instead, right? I just watched these videos and like, uh, sometimes I just start counting like how many people, like, okay, she has a job, she doesn't have like,
Your audio's cutting out right now. I can't hear you. It's weird.
okay, here, let me just, not even special places. I don't even look at special places. I look at like average places, like just like in the corner of the street, right? So I like, okay, all of these are wearing hijab. This guy is playing a guitar. Like this would be shut down. Like when I was back in Iran, somebody would have shut this guy down by now. Like just playing guitar is haram, right? So I just try to see. Oh, this cat. This boy is playing with the cat. I just go through these videos. This is a hobby. I can't go back to Iran, but oh, like look at this woman. You see, so this is so casually. Look at this, like nothing happening, right? So all of these women are wearing hijab, but then look at this. This woman just casually not wearing hijab, like it's no one's business. Like this is illegal, but she doesn't care. She's recorded. She doesn't care. Shows there's no enforcement. And then I go forward. Okay, so this is nothing's happening here. So you can see she's wearing a half hijab, kind of like a hoodie, turning her hijab. Yeah. So this is my way of going back home to Iran. Given that if I go back to Iran, I will get executed. So this is how I travel. I just look at the streets, see how much has changed. Yeah.
Oh my God, that reminds me that Dolly is talking about this Egyptians going to Iran and getting cultural shock, saying, "Where are the Muslims?" Did you see that video?
No, no.
Oh my God, this went viral. I think it was an Egyptian like travel YouTuber or something.
Really?
But he went to Iran and he was like legitimately freaking out over how people were acting and the lack of visible Muslimness. He was like having a mental breakdown, being like, "Where are the Muslims?" Oh
Look,
my God.
so this is Iran as well. This is like a bazaar. Oh, an outside mall. Oh, this is the outside of a mall. You saw the girls at the beginning. They were wearing no hijab.
Mm.
Okay, so see, some girls are like this. They have their hijab. Oh, look, two women with that hijab. But you saw that girl. That's like a common tactic. You have the hijab. You have a backup hijab. So it's like you will just, if somebody says something to you, you just bring it up. But it's just like a kind of like a shawl.
Oh
No
my
hijab.
God, wait, no, Dolly reminded me the most important detail, that Egyptian YouTuber guy, he was freaking out because he went during Ramadan and people were not fasting. They were eating and going to cafes in public. It's like, are these people not Muslim? Like, no.
You see, girl.
No, they're not.
Look at this girl. This is a common tactic, right? So you have the shawl around your neck in case a police officer come and says something to you. You just cover after. So you just have your hijab around your neck as a backup. As a backup, if somebody says something to you. So that's a comment. Look at this. See, this is a woman without her hijab, but she has this around her neck as a backup if somebody wants to tell her to cover up. If somebody annoys her and tells her to cover up, it's like, so look at, see, you see another woman with that hijab. Still, they have the hijab around their neck in case somebody says something to them. That's a common tactic. Look at another one. Look at this. This woman. This one is covering up, but she has it around her neck. Common tactic in case a police officer says something. Yes. It's like a shawl now. They turned it into a shawl. You guys telling you these details, or is that too much detail? Let me know in the live chat. Like if you want me to tell you these little information about what's happening there. Like, is that interesting or not? Yeah. Anyways.
Our next story also has to do with Iran because actually let's actually I don't know if I want to clap. This is probably the most sad one this week.
Super chat. We have 2 super chats.
Oh, we got a super chat. Sorry. Oh, Kenny is asking, what was she singing?
Okay, so I have to admit something. When somebody goes traditional, I have a hard time understanding what's going on. When she goes like, when somebody like just stretches the words, like somebody has to come and try. Like I don't know. I don't know. Let me see. Let me try to turn. Oh, I understand this. Should I translate? I can understand this. Should I translate?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I fall in love, the world changes color for me. So when I fall in love, the world changes color for me. The rooster's sound in the morning will turn into a kind of music for me, a different music for me. So when like the normal, so basically when I fall in love, colors will look different to me, and the sounds like a rooster singing in the morning, it will sound different to me. Like it will sound like music. When I fall in love. Something about I didn't get the last part, but yeah.
I'm telling you guys, Persian love songs hit different.
Yeah.
Persian love songs really hit different. Oh my gosh. Also, Persian songs about heartbreak. Guys, if you're going through a breakup, go listen to some old school Persian songs and you'll just be hugging yourself in your pillow, freaking weeping. Like, my heart will never be the same. When you left me, my world split in two. My heart shattered. I have never been so alone.
Yes. It's very, very like romantic, expressive and they use like a lot of imagery to show how significant the emotions are, right? A lot of appeal to nature to try to express how significant your feelings are. Yes.
Armin shared some of these, and you're just like,
wow, me, you mate. I don't. All right.
But yeah, it's very, very deeply poetic. Lost Goth is asking, what is your favorite Persian song, Susie? My favorite Persian song is definitely I don't know if I can pronounce it right. Duto Cheshme Siyal Dari. Which is by Feridun Farugi. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing song.
Omran is saying I'm a good translator. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should.
Dutau Cheshme. I have a hard time saying that word. Siyal Dari, which I can't talk. Roughly translate to "You have two black eyes," but is legitimately one of the most beautiful songs ever.
Anyways, we should do another super chat. We have another super chat, and then go to the next one.
Can you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I love this song so much. Another super chat is saying hijab law is a metaphysical substrate of nihilism. Ah.
Okay.
Of course.
I like this guy. Yeah, this guy. See, the metaphysical lobster. You could see this is a perfect. I love this. This is great. Yeah, I like it. I like the lobster. I like the username. I like how he knows how to sound like Jordan Peterson. It's fantastic. Okay. Oh, Dolly saying your Persian is so cute.
It's, yeah. My I'm glad that my accent is at least endearing. Super American Persian accent. All
right.
Okay.
Can we
Yeah,
clap?
let's go to next news. I mean, this is sad.
Oh, okay. I
Uh,
can't clap. Okay, never mind.
yeah, but we're gonna celebrate, like a hero. Okay. So,
Oh, well, Omar is saying you sing well. Persian. So
oh,
Omar
thank you.
All right.
I'll take it.
All right. Next news. No clapping. Okay.
Next news. Iran's brutal message, young freedom-fighting protester executed. In a stark illustration of Iran's brutal crackdown on dissent, 34-year-old Reza Rasai was executed on August 6th for his alleged role in the death of an IRGC intelligence official during the 2022 anti-government protests. Rasai, a member of the marginalized Kurdish and Yarsan communities, was arrested and sentenced to death in a case rife with controversy. Human rights organizations, including Amnesty International, condemned the execution, citing reports of torture and forced confessions. Eyewitnesses and sources close to Rasai's family disputed the regime's accusations, claiming that he was not involved in the altercation that led to the official's death. The execution took place against a backdrop of ongoing tension between the Iranian government and protesters, with Rasai reportedly joining a gathering where people chanted slogans like "Death to the child-killing government" and "Woman, Life, Freedom." Amnesty International stated that Rasai's death sentence was handed down after an unfair trial based on forced confessions, highlighting the ongoing human rights crisis in Iran and the regime's harsh response to those who dare to challenge its authority. So, before I get into the nature of this case and why I wanted to talk about it, I wanted to give a little bit of background because a lot of people have joined this channel as subscribers recently, and they might not know about some of our history as a community and our involvement. So, for those who are not aware, Atheist Republic has channels and communities in multiple languages, and we have a giant channel called Jumhuri Bi Khodayan, which is Persian for Atheist Republic. And Armin is the host of that channel. And we have a giant community that is very active inside Iran, and also the Iranian diaspora. And in case people are not aware, there was a massive uprising in Iran in 2022 following the death in custody, the murder of a young woman named Mahsa Amini for allegedly having improper hijab. And this caused the greatest popular uprising in the Islamic Republic's history, and more regime officials were killed in this uprising than in like 40 years, right? And so we were very, very active as a community in supporting our community, both inside Iran, our friends in the country, and also the movement at large, because it was in many ways a liberal secular movement towards throwing off the chains and oppression and occupation of an Islamic fascist regime. And we really threw ourselves behind supporting, this call for change among Iran's population. And Armin and I personally know so many people that were very deeply and personally affected by this in a way that we actually can't talk about publicly for their safety. And so, this was a huge moment. And we talked about this a lot. And I really care about still highlighting the people that are continuing to experience the fallout for rising up against the Islamic Republic. Because a lot of people are like, oh, whatever happened to your revolution, whatever happened to this uprising, blah, 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 like as if it was just a failure. And I don't want people to forget that there are still young people who are losing everything and sacrificing everything for the sake of wanting to liberate their country from this tyranny. And so that's part of why it's really important for me to keep an eye on this movement, right? Like there are hundreds of people who had their eyes purposefully and intentionally shot out by regime sources. And when asked about how they're now blinded, they go, I will give my eyes for freedom. I will give anything. I will give both my eyes if I can see freedom. Like that is really the spirit of this young generation of Iranians, and it needs to be highlighted and celebrated. And so it's really important to me that we don't pretend like it ended and that people aren't still dying because of it, right? So now let's talk about the case of Reza. So Reza is part of a Kurdish minority in Iran, and he's also part of a religious minority in Iran that is heavily persecuted. And so what happened, according to the sources, is that there was a ceremony that was being held for a religious figure within this community who was actually murdered by the regime in Sweden. And so they were having this ceremony to celebrate the life of this religious figure in their community. And the authorities, the regime authorities, were there discouraging them from doing this. And when people are this was in November. This was in November. So this is very, very shortly after, basically almost exactly a month after Mahsa Amini died, that this incident happened. So this is, peak heat, like heat of the moment. And at this gathering, people start to chant anti-regime slogans. And when they start to chant anti-regime slogans, authorities come and start cracking down on people, beating people, I believe even shooting at people. And in response to that, one of these officials was basically taken by the crowd and beaten to death. And in response to this IRGC agent being murdered, the government was just looking to pin it on someone. And according to reports, they arrested arbitrarily a bunch of people. Reza was one of them for being at this gathering. Everyone insists that he wasn't involved. And then extracted a confession from him under torture, saying that he did do it. And then, had a trial. And there's I'm not going to go into the details of how his trial was fraudulent and messed up. But if you want to go read about that, you can. And then his death sentence was upheld despite all this evidence against it. And then he was recently executed because of it.
Yeah, I mean, based on their own stand, like people in Iran, people who are even pro-regime, some pro-regime people are saying the standards of this execution doesn't even abide by their own laws. Like this is completely, they even admit how full of errors this whole case has been. They have some brutal standards, but when it comes to execution, they even don't meet their own standard, the limitations of their own standards. They just violate their own rules, which is insane.
So, Armin, in the Persian sphere, in the Farsi speaking sphere, what kind of reactions have you been seeing to this?
So I have seen a lot of reactions, but I also, I'm glad you asked that, right? They wait for these executions sometimes for what they sometimes, it seems like they do it when some other big news is happening so that they could cover it under that, right? So every time we have like and it works. Like a lot of people in Iran are now talking about potential war between Israel and the Islamic Republic. And it seems like whenever people, I don't know if this is true or not, but it just seems like whenever people are so focused on another news, they do some of these executions. And the reason why they do that is because so that they could give the hardliners, their supporters, what they wanted, but also reduce the backlash from the other side, because so many people are so consumed with other news that this will get less coverage. So the people who are bringing attention to this and talking about it are also reminding people that this is what the Islamic Republic of Iran does. Every time there's some major news, some people get executed so that they could bury that news under that. Does that make sense?
Oh, completely. And to that point, D, our lovely editor, and by the way, I want to just give a public shout out of massive appreciation for Dee, because she's just been, I mean, she's always been a rock star, but behind the scenes, she's been a particular rock star lately. And so I just want to publicly celebrate that. Everyone say thank you, Dee. She's amazing. Vital part of our community. So shouts out to her. Anyways, and this is case A about why she's so important, because she's making this point that also needs to be highlighted. Because Dolly was asking, why does the IRGC keep executing people occasionally? This is brutal. Well, the thing is, Dolly, it's not occasionally. Dee is highlighting they are on a killing spree. The stats are crazy. And to that point, she told me personally to highlight this fact. Thank you, Dee. Here's example. Reported on August 7th, 4 days ago. The Islamic Republic, already one of the world's leading executioners, is significantly ramping up its execution of prisoners in a deeply disturbing surge in hangings that have seen at least 33 individuals unlawfully executed in the last 24 hours. Within the past week, the Islamic Republic executed 33 people within the span of 24 hours. So if you look at the statistics, it's not just political prisoners, let's be clear. These are a lot of people that are convicted for drug offenses, for example. They are going on a shocking ramping up of domestic executions. And we have seen a stark rise in the execution rate of Iran over the past 4 years. Now, a lot of people will talk about the easing up of the maximum pressure strategy from the US as potentially an element that incentivized that behavior. But people need to understand that this is actually like they are going on a killing spree. And to Armin's point, partially this is allowed because there are many other things distracting the media. Go ahead.
Let me explain the strategy to you. Okay, so a lot of the executions have picked up, like Dee said, so dramatically. Okay, but we don't hear about the executions that much until it gets to one of these political. Some people who were part of the revolution, part of the Massa wave, part of the people who were against the regime. But the reason why a lot of these executions don't get any attention is because they are mostly drug related, and people do not sympathize with drug dealers or people who have been arrested for having drugs and stuff. Like, oh, there's a whole bunch of druggies, drug dealers. You know, they don't. I mean, even people who care, they don't care as much. So, so this is why when it comes to somebody like this, because they know the Iranian people care about this, and there will be a backlash to this, they try to bury this under. They wait for these ones for when there's like some major news happening. They wait for that. But the utility of executing for the Islamic Republic, the utility of killing so many drug dealers, is that because the Islamic Republic is looking very weak and pathetic to Iranians, right? Especially because of how Israel just comes and goes and just takes out anything it wants. And because the Islamic Republic is becoming weaker and weaker and cannot provide, it cannot do so, the economy is bad. So it looks pathetically weak. And the Islamic Republic requires a method to show that I have teeth. And a lot of Iranian people keep pointing out that the only group of people that you could overpower is your unarmed civilians. You keep acting like you're strong, but you're pathetically weak in front of the United States, Israel, even your neighbors. Like you're pathetically weak among. But when you try to act strong, you just kill your own civilians to show that you're strong, right? So the purpose of executing, because they say it's about law and order, but the executions of drug dealers actually hasn't reduced. Have had no impact. Like there is a lot of analysis and research on this, and drug crime has not been reduced because of the executions. But they're not doing the executions to reduce drug crimes. They're doing the executions to remind the Iranian people that I am a monster that you need to be afraid of. Like I'm not afraid of executions. Like we are dangerous. Don't mess with us. Like yes, if Israel is coming and killing Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, you might think like, oh, is Islamic Republic weak? Maybe they're so weak they cannot protect Ismail Hani in the heart of Tehran. Don't think that. Don't let that give you ideas. Maybe I cannot do what I want to Israel, but I can do that to you. To you, I can execute in large numbers. If I could execute so many drug dealers in large numbers, then I can also execute political prisoners in large numbers. So it's a threat. That's why they do it.
There's also something that I want to highlight as a case in point. Okay, so here's number one. Okay, this can be tracked empirically.
Can I just add something quickly?
Oh yeah,
We should care about drug dealers, right? Like drug dealers are criminals, and they should be punished accordingly. But every criminals have human rights, and human rights means that you should be able to, cruel and unusual punishments, including executions, is not something that we should defend criminals from cruel and unusual punishment. They should only get the punishment relative to what actually makes society better and more safe. But like, we should be defending even criminals from execution. Like, we should care about how drug dealers are being treated. So just wanted to add that. But we don't. I mean, even if we say that, we don't actually. Anyways, go on, Susanna. I don't know what to add.
Yeah. Basically, if anyone's interested in learning more about this, you can actually track the correlation between US policy of appeasement versus pressure on Iran and the number of executions, which is this dark blue, that happen on an annual basis. And we've seen a huge spike in appeasement, in executions recently. So that just goes to show that our foreign policy towards the Islamic Republic matters. People's lives are on the line, first of all. And also, it's not enough to just talk about these people and try to honor their legacy after they're dead. There's also many other, particularly men, who are being persecuted for the actions that they took, risked their lives during this uprising in 2022, largely for the sake of women's freedoms, but also for the sake of all Iranians, who are still have their lives at risk. So I wanted to highlight one of these cases because you know how I just said that our attitude and pressure that we put on the regime matters? Well, here's an example of how we can make a difference. So there's another protester who is sentenced to execution, and we have to put public pressure on the regime to help save his life, because we have many examples of, a lot of people dismiss social media activism, but we have examples of this actually influencing the actions of the Iranian government. So one of these men is Mojahed Kur. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And basically his backstory is that he is being falsely accused of the murder of this young boy, Kian Pirfalak. If you want to know the story about Kian Pirfalak, it's a very, very important story that really shook Iran extremely deeply. We have covered it many times on this channel. So if you're interested, look on our channel for the full story on Kian Pirfalak. But because this murder of this young boy shook the country to its core, they're finding other random civilians to hold accountable for that boy's murder. And this is the man who is being falsely blamed for the death of that young boy, so they can try to cover up the fact that it was actually the government that did it. And the families of this young boy are actually coming out and supporting and showing solidarity for this man's family, because they're like, we're witnesses. Like, they have stood so strong in rejecting the regime's narrative, even though their family was completely shattered by
They saw that the government killed their boy, and even in the car when they were with the officials, they were saying to each other, it was one of us that did the shooting. So it's awful. By the way, with regards to the graph that you show, some people might say, okay, correlation does not mean causation. Yeah, correlation does not always mean causation, but correlation increases the chances of causation, and also correlation negates the causation, the opposite causation. Even if it doesn't prove causation, if somebody is trying to claim the causation from the other side, it would negate that. So just remember that. But yeah, correlation increases the chances of causation.
Kenny is
Anyways,
saying they kill a child and then they pin it on someone else. Yes, that is exactly their modus operandi.
that's what they did. That's what they did. Like we have so much evidence for this. Like it's beyond. If you guys follow this in detail, you would see why so many Iranians claim like whenever the Islamic Republic says something, we have to believe. I mean, I don't say that, but they said like if the Islamic Republic tells us it's day and there's the sun in the sky, we will be convinced that it must be night. If the Islamic Republic is telling us day, it's day. That based on their history and how they operated, that's what some people are in Iran are saying. It's insane. Yeah. Okay. So, can we clap for the next news?
Yes, we can. This is just a little bit of topical, interesting spice of life starting.
Okay. All right. Well, next news.
Next news. Niqab crackdown. What's behind Somalia's latest action? In a controversial move, authorities in the southern Somali city of Kismayo have launched an aggressive crackdown on Islamic face veils known as niqabs, citing urgent security concerns. Police Chief Warsame Ahmed Gele told Somali state television that security forces have been conducting operations to fight the veils, with officers stopping women in the streets and forcibly confiscating hundreds of niqabs. Women caught wearing the garment, which covers most of the face except for the eyes, now face fines or jail time. This action comes in the immediate aftermath of a deadly attack on August 2nd at a popular beachfront resort in Mogadishu, Somalia's capital, which killed 37 people and wounded many others. The attack was claimed by Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda affiliated Islamist group that controls large parts of central and southern Somalia. Well, the niqab ban has apparently, I didn't know this, the niqab ban has technically been in place since 2013 due to security risks. It has rarely been enforced until now.
Wow. One of the most Islamic places on the planet.
Yeah.
Niqab down. Wow. So tell me again how Islamophobic France is for banning the niqab. So this confirms all the security concerns that these secular countries have been having. So, God, are people going to come apologize for calling a niqab crackdown Islamophobic? Now that this is a terrorist center. This is terrorism central. Somalia is cracking down on niqab for security reasons. Unbelievable. Holy crap. What the hell? Are people going to come and apologize for saying that they call France Islamophobic for banning the niqab? Is anybody going to come apologize now that Somalia is doing this? Somalia. Unbelievable.
Yeah, like 99% Muslim.
Okay. You know what? What's happening? This shows how powerful Western imperialism is. That even Somalia is suffering from Islamophobia. The spread of far right white nationalist Islamophobic. This is because of Twitter and TikTok and social hate. Bigots are just spreading their ideology on social media, and even in the heart of Islamic countries, people are becoming Islamophobic. That's what's happening. Muslims are becoming. You see what we have done, Susie? We have made Muslims Islamophobic. That's what.
Oh my God, my brother, you are speaking truth to power, my friend. Oh my God. I mean, we need to crack down on these social media companies, man. This is out of control.
Wow. Do you know how many times now we could use this? This is going to be a weapon for us. Every time somebody wants to claim this is Islamophobia, we'll just hit them over the head with this. We just hit them over the head with this every time.
Should we blame Tommy Robinson?
People are following Tommy in Somalia. That's the reason. That's the problem. Okay. Yes, Islamic pirates are
Oh
becoming
my god. He needs to be brought to account for this, clearly. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
This is so good. Unbelievable. I did not expect this. I did not expect this.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I was just like, this is so interesting. We gotta talk about it. You know, I go back and forth on the Niqab ban, and you know,
We shouldn't anymore now. Like I used to be like, I see the point. I don't know. Maybe it's a good idea. I mean, now based on this, I mean, like, okay, yeah, just ban that. Just ban it. There's no excuses anymore. When Muslim countries are banning the niqab, you should just shut up. Just shut up. Just shut up. Just shut up.
oh my gosh, yeah.
Right.
I mean, really,
Anyways,
honestly, not that much commentary needed.
just the headline. That's the headline. That's all. Guys,
Yeah.
make sure you like the stream. After the stream is over, please make sure you leave a comment. And what else? What else? Subscribe if you haven't. What are you doing if you're not subscribed? Like, come to
Also,
Atheist
all the
Republic.
people on Twitter. We
Twitter.
have
Twitter.
hundreds of people watching us on Twitter. Y'all need to come over to the YouTube channel and subscribe, and you can actually interact with us over there. We'd love to see you.
Search for Atheist Republic on YouTube so you get to be part of the live chat so we could see your comments, right? And also, if you are subscribed right now to the Atheist Republic, that is not enough. That is not enough. You have to hit the bell notification. If you don't hit the bell notification, you are not going to know that we are live. So hit the bell notification. Also, please recommend the Atheist Republic YouTube channel to your friends, to your enemies, to the strangers, to your pets, to the jinns, the addict, in the basement, anything, any living being that could consume YouTube, tell them to come and subscribe to Atheist Republic. However, do not do that if you are living in a place where it might be dangerous for you to promote anti-Islamic atheist channel. Then do not recommend us. Do not recommend us. Okay. Feel free to like us because nobody can see who liked the show. But other than that, don't do anything else. Anyways, thank you guys. I'm gonna go. Susie's gonna go, and thank you to everybody. Thank you to Susie. Thank you to Dee. Thank you to our volunteers that we could not name. Thank you to Dolly for all the things that she does for my streams that I do throughout the week. And thank you to Alfred. He's not here today. He's not here for the news. Alfred for highlighting the comments. By the way, Dolly is working so hard as well for like all the streams that we do.
Dolly's a freaking beast.
She is such a great heart. Like, I don't know what I would do without her. So thank you so much to Dolly as well. Anyways, guys, thank you and see you on the next stream. Bye.